there's no way. That line clearly suggests that at some point in his past, Brook saw Gunko. Or at least someone who looked incredibly similar to Gunko. But where and when did he see her? And why did Gunko feel pain in her chest after attacking Brook? Actually, there are hints scattered all throughout the story that connected to this. In this video, I'm going to break it all down from multiple angles, especially from the perspective of someone reading the original Japanese version. Brook's line this time, そんなわけないか. No, there's no way, is actually a classic manga technique for hinting at future developments. Phrase like そんなはずないか that can be, or そんなわけあるか there's no way, almost always ended up coming true. For example, take Kawamatsu's that can be. He thought there was no way Hiyori could be there, but in the end, it really was Hiyori who helped the rediscoverers, Akazaya. Or look at Blackbeard's そんなわけあるか no way, that's true. He was reacting to Luffy's old bounty of 30 millions, but sure enough, Luffy's bounty had already jumped up to 100 million. And even Usopp, after hearing Luffy's dream, he said, 無理だし, there's no way that could happen. But knowing Oda Sensei's style, that dream will almost certainly come true someday. So in the same way, Brook's feeling here is almost definitely going to turn out to be right. It's not just a throwaway line, it's a foreshadowing, in Japanese, fukusen. And one of the most striking moments in this chapter was when Gunko attacked Brook. And yet, we saw her show real pain in her heart afterward. And actually, this moment makes a theory we talked about before feel a lot more real. Gunko has a split personality. First of all, her biggest visual trait is the fact that her mouth is wrapped in bandages. That design seems heavily inspired by character from the Japanese children's book Anpanman, specifically Roll Panna-chan. Roll Panna also has bandages wrapped around her face. Her defining feature is that she has two hearts, one good and one evil. When she is in the good state, her red heart shines, and when she is in the bad state, her blue heart glows. Considering that Gunko's eyes are also designed differently left and right, it's very possible that Oda Sensei drew inspiration from Roll Panna-chan. And I think the idea of having both a good and evil heart is exactly what's happening with Gunko. When she kicked Brook, it wasn't just simple regret. Another personality inside her actually felt the pain. That's why the scene was drawn the way it was. Also, I personally believe that Gunko's second personality is the one referred to as Mosako, the voice who was talking with Loki. In the English translation, the name was referred as Shaggy, but the feeling is very different in Japanese. In Japanese, mosa mosa is an onomatopoeia used to describe thick, bushy hair or overgrown plants and grass. So it's still unclear whether Mosako is a real name or just nickname based on that image. Even official translations sometimes make major mistakes, like what happened with Garing's title. So it's always best to check the Japanese original version directly when interpreting details. And actually, when you think about the Mosa Mosa, there's somewhere it fits perfectly in the Straw Hat Pirates. Brook. Brook's proud of his giant afro. In Japanese, you could easily call it Mosa Mosa Afro. If Brook really had seen Gunko before, then where exactly would he have met her? There are actually several periods in Brook's life when he wasn't with Straw Hat Pirates. His time as the captain of a royal escort squad, and even earlier. His time with Rumba Pirates, his time wandering in the Florian Triangle, and later during his world tour as Soul King. Honestly, the timeline could line up with any of these periods. First, let's look at his days with the escort squad. That was more than 50 years ago, so under normal circumstances, you'd think Gunko wouldn't have even been born yet. But if she had already been a member of the God's Knights back then, it would make sense. In this chapter, thanks to Soul's comment, we learn that the God's Knights are basically immortal, Fujimi, which means just like how Saturns hadn't aged in over 200 years, it's possible Gunko also has a body that doesn't age. If that's the case, it wouldn't be strange at all for Brooks to have seen her 50 years ago. However, there's complication. Take Figurant Garing, for example. He was a God's Knight 38 years ago. Got very instant, and back then, he looked young, kind of the Shanks or Shamrock today. But now, Garing clearly looks 38 years older, which suggests that not all God's Knights are ageless. So if Gunko really has been around for more than 50 years without aging, that would make sense her special case even among the God's Knights. And the biggest reason for that might be connected to the fact that she has two different personalities. Now, about Brook's time in the Florian Triangle. There's still a huge mystery surrounding that place, the mysterious shadow that appeared there. Given what we know now, the God's Knight seems to have powers that go way beyond the normal limits of devil fruits, things like the abyss or immortal bodies. It's not impossible that they gain those powers by making a pact with some kind of demon lurking in the Florian Triangle. If that's the case, I wouldn't be strange at all if Brook happened to cross paths with Gunko there. And if Brook convinced himself afterward that it was just a dream, then his line, そんなわけないか, no, there's no way, fits perfectly. Finally, there's his Soul King era. Brook went on the world tour as Soul King, traveling all over the world. There's a possibility that Gunko met him during that time as just another fan in the crowd. But maybe the version of her Brook met was actually her another personality. After all, Brook always says, 音楽は魂を揺さぶる. Music shakes the soul. It could be that when she heard his music, her true soul, the original personality, started to awaken, even if just for a moment. And in chapter 1147, Gunko ordered Brook to become a musician who plays for her, for eternal life, but Brook refused. And even while refusing, he spoke in his usual polite Japanese. Brook always ties to the respectful, even toward his enemies, using formal second-person terms and a polite speech. This time too, he called Gunko Ojo-san, meaning young lady, which is a very courteous way of speaking. But actually, there have been rare moments when Brook used a much stronger, rougher second-person pronoun, omae. Have you ever heard? One time was during the Whole Cake Island arc, when he stood in the treasure room face-off against Big Mom. There, he used omae tachi, speaking not just to Big Mom, but her whole group, like whole pirates who had separated Sanji from the Straw Hat Pirates. It showed just how deeply Brook valued his crew, his nakama, enough to break his usual gentlemanly style when they were threatened. There's another time too. Back in Thrillerberg, when Ryuma used Brook's signature technique, Hanauta Sancho Yahazugiri, the no-song 3-verse slash, Brook snapped and called Ryuma omae. He was furious that someone would use the very move that was so closely tied to his identity. Brook said this, even if you have my techniques and my personality, without memories and compassion, I don't want someone like you using that name, Yahazugiri. It turns out that Brook developed the technique back when he was a part of the Kingdom Surprise Attack Squad. Even way back in Thrillerberg, it was hinted that Brook, much like Sanji, has important parts of his part he hasn't shared with the Straw Hat Pirate. We still don't know how much time Oda Sensei plans to spread exploring Brook's backstory, but if Gunko, or someone who looks like her, was involved during his time with the Royal Escort Squad, there's definitely room for deeper story to be told. By the way, Brook's move, the Hanauta Sancho Yahazugiri nose song reverse slash, is probably based on the traditional Japanese rakugo story called Kubichochin. In that story, there's a bit about Tsujigiri, which was this outrageous practice where samurai would test their swords by randomly cutting down townspeople. And in the story, there's a master swordsman named Shirai Gonpachi, who was said to have the sword technique called the Hanauta Sancho Yahazugiri. Hanauta means humming through your nose, and Sancho is about 327 meters. The story goes that one day, Gonpachi got into the argument with a drunk man. The drunk got cocky and spit in the Gonpachi's face, so Gonpachi, furious, drew his sword in the slash and slashed his neck clean through. But Gonpachi was so skilled that the drunk man didn't even realize he had been cut. He just kept humming a tune, walking about 327 meters down the road before he finally collapsed. That's the kind of swordsmanship being referenced, the sharp and precise that the victim doesn't even notice they've been cut. It's exactly the kind of feeling we see in the Brook's fight with Jorah in Dressrosa arc. That's why Brook always says this line with such casual confidence. はい、もう切っちゃいました。Ah yes, I've already cut you. And also Brook says this powerful line to Gunko. 死にましょう、仁義を書いて生きるよりは。Let's die, it's better than living without honor. What's really striking here isn't just Brook's resolve. It's the way Oda Sensei uses the layout of the manga panels to emphasize it. When Gunko asks her a question, her speech bubble appears first, but then Brook's reply bubble is drawn overlapping hers, almost pushing it aside. It's a brilliant visual way to show just how overwhelming Brook's loyalty to Luffy is. Now, the word Jingi, which Brook uses here, has been getting a lot of attention ever since the Elbaf arc started. Jingi refers to the essential duty of showing courtesy, loyalty, and obligation to others. It also means living in a way that sets an example for how persons should behave in the society. Even in the world of pirates in One Piece story, Jingi exists. Whitebeard, Shirohige, and Big Mom both place a lot of importance on it. Right before the Elbaf arc, we actually saw perfect example of this with Shanks and Bartholomew. In the pirate world, it's considered common sense that captain is responsible for the action of their subordinates. So when Bartholomew, a member of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, burned red-haired pirates' territory flag, Shanks' crew made it clear that Luffy, as Bartholomew's leader, would need to answer for it. This idea of taking responsibility for your people's action is known as otoshimae in Yakuza culture or Yakuza world, and fittingly, it was even used as the title for that chapter. In the world of pirates, it's also considered proper manners to personally go and show gratitude to someone who has helped your crew or subordinates. Ace did exactly that. He went to thank Shanks for taking care of his little brother Luffy. And now, Luffy is following that same tradition. He made sure to go and thank Soul in person. When Luffy gave his little speech to Soul, he even copied the formal phrasing Jinbei used when he officially joined the Straw Hat crew pirates back in Wano country. And that's important because Jinbei is often called the man of Jingi, Jingi no otoko, someone who truly embodied the spirit of loyalty, duty, and honor. Brook also followed this custom when he joined the Straw Hat Pirates. He made a formal declaration, just like Jinbei, showing deep respect for the pirates' crew and their captain, Luffy. So it makes perfect sense that Brook, more than almost anyone else, consistently acts as one of Luffy's most loyal and respectful subordinates. And his knight-like behavior, swearing absolute loyalty to his captain, fits perfectly his background, back when he served as a leader of the Royal Escort Squad. It's not just about politeness. For Brook, it's a way of life he's lived since his days in the kingdom. In chapter 1147, there's actually another page that's been getting a lot of attention besides Brook is this final shot, the expression on Nico Robin's face. I have a lot I want to say about her too, so I'm planning to talk about it in the separated video. Also on my page, I break down the differences in nuance between original Japanese version of the latest One Piece chapters. Right now, the number of members who can join this month has dropped below 6. Of course, I'm also sharing some of your analysis with free members as well. And I'll have this new bounty poster ready to show you in just a moment. Alright, see you in the next video.